Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis. Today, very grateful, very humbled to be joined by best-selling author, intuitive guide, Inna Segal. Inna Segal is like awesome. I love her work. I love her book. For those that don't know, if you're watching on YouTube, this is her book here, The Secret Language of Your Body. I refer to this book quite a lot in the work I do and obviously my own journey as well. So, very happy and very humble to have you here. It's been 2 years in the making, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I guess all good things are worth waiting for.
100%, 100%. I was just telling you off air, a friend of mine referred me to your book probably 3 years ago, and then I obviously ordered the book after I had it for a bit, and then the cards, and yeah, just a really transformative sort of book on my journey. As I said to you off air, whenever something comes up, it's an awesome read for those that don't know much about it. It's the emotional component to an ailment that you have, and whenever I have an ailment or something come up, I'll refer to the book and I'll read the passage about it. It could be pressure, it could be anger, whatever it is. It's always bang on. So really awesome book. How did that all come about? And tell me more about your journey and who you are, and because a lot of my younger listeners won't know much about you.
Well, I actually started very young. So
Oh.
um, I I was in a lot of pain from an early age. I had psoriasis all over my elbows and my knees. I had digestive issues where I'd end up in a hospital for and nobody knew what to do with me. I also had back pain, which was probably the thing that was causing the most pain, and all of that was connected to great anxiety because it all started from maybe when I was 6 years old. I remember already being in the hospital for digestive issues, and then it continued from maybe 14, 15. I started getting this back pain, and my mum was very kind of into medicine, I should say. She didn't really know anything about alternative medicine, and so she just kept taking me to doctors, chiropractors, physiotherapists. And when I was about 18, I met my partner at the time that I had a long-term relationship with, and he was very open to these alternatives and took me to kinesiologists and different healers and different, I guess, massage therapists, anybody who was doing anything that was a bit different. And I would show up with this attitude, because that's how I grew up, that you are going to fix me, you're going to make me better.
Mm.
And I don't know anything about it. I'm very young. I don't, I don't participate in my healing because who am I to know anything? So fix me. And my moment of transformation came when I was about 21 and I was in agony, absolute agony. And, or maybe just under 21. I was, I'd been in this horrendous pain where my back was completely twisted and inflamed. I actually thought that I could end up in a wheelchair. I was really, really scared and concerned at that, early age. And I was seeing this chiropractor at that point 3 times a week, and then somebody else every other day of the week. So I was literally, that was my full-time job, was going to see someone. In between, I was studying professional writing. I wanted to be a writer at the time. So when I wasn't at, uni or wherever I was studying, I think it was uni and then TAFE, I changed to, I was, at some health practitioner's office. And we got to a point where the pain was so bad that the chiropractor was the closest to my house. It was only a few minutes away. And I drove there and I just literally felt like I was out of my body from the agony that I was in. And he heard about this whole story again and came out of his office while I was waiting. And he just looked at me and he said, "So your body's stuck." And and I said to him, "Yeah, I know. What can you do to help me?" And he was quite a wise person. I really do feel like I didn't at the time, but I feel like he really was. And he just said nothing. And I said, "What do you mean nothing?" And he said, "Well, it seems to me like your body wants to stay stuck. So there's nothing I can do. Go home." I have to say, on the way home, I moved out of depression into rage. I was enraged of how he could say this to me.
Mm.
But at the same time, it kept playing out in my mind that my body and my life essentially was stuck. I was stuck in this very victim-like perspective of my life, and I wasn't getting the message of, that I needed to learn from what was happening. I needed to move on or move forward. I had gone through quite a few traumas. I got pregnant when I was 19 and I lost that baby literally just before birth. So
Oh
it
wow.
was, so it was like an 8.5 months pregnancy. And I didn't actually even know that this type of thing happened to somebody at that age in Australia. So yeah, I was pretty shocked and I wasn't moving forward from that. I was really holding on to essentially everything that occurred in my life. And he was right. And so I kind of felt like my body was speaking, but in a different language to what I consciously understood.
Mm.
That it was speaking through, hey, you need to process, you need to move on, you need to grow from these experiences, which I wasn't. And when I went home, I had also studied I'd done a lot of acting classes. So I thought I'd write and act. That was the thing I was going to do in my life. And in the acting classes, we had learned how to breathe deeply and we learned about visualization. And so I thought to myself, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to take a step forward. And so I placed my hands on my back and I started breathing with the pain instead of against the pain. And then for whatever reason, I thought, you know what? I've been to so many people and they haven't helped. I don't know how to help myself. I'm going to ask if there is something higher, divine, help me
Ooh.
and help me now. And at that moment, and I was very skeptical, I want to say, I'm not one of those easily, kind of easy believers. And so um, this warmth just kind of took over my body and I had my eyes closed and I could see this gold light. And I thought to myself, okay, something's happening. And then for whatever other reason, it occurred to me to say, I wonder what my back would look like. I just, I wonder if I could see what it would look like. And at that point, it literally felt like this light switch came on and I could see my back. I got a fright, but I could see where the inflammation was and how it was twisted and what was going on. And from that moment, not from a victim perspective, but actually being curious, I asked, why do I have this? At this age, not even 21, I think at the time. And I was shown, it was like this image that came to me. And it started with moving from Eastern Europe to Australia and not knowing one word of English and just being bullied at school for being different, for not knowing how to speak the language, for being from the wrong part of the world. And then it was all about this sense of not feeling truly understood and supported by my parents because it wasn't just one school, it was a school where I was bullied for being different, and then I went to another school, and it was a private school that allowed people from Eastern Europe to come there for um, a much kind of adjusted price. So you paid 1/10 probably of what everybody else paid. And what I realized was that I now was in a school with people who grew up in like super crazy rich families, for whom maybe buying, clothes that were worth, I don't know, $5,000 was like 5 cents for me. And they did not, they were not happy about the school opening the doors up for people like myself who literally came from poverty. And they really attacked me and my friends for that and looked down on us and treated us very badly. And my parents could not really understand that, and they were in conflict with themselves and, again, coming to a new country. And so I just didn't really know who to turn to, which is what the back is all about, as well as your skin. Feeling comfortable in your skin, having support, which I didn't have. And um, essentially, there was also loss that then later kind of made the pain be twisted and my back be twisted. And so I kept seeing all of these aspects, including that my own loss connected to my ancestry and connected to my digestive system. So as I kept seeing this and feeling into it and actually crying and going through all the emotions, I felt this unwinding occurring. And I fell asleep. And the next day, when I woke up, about 70% of the pain was gone. And I
Wow.
knew I just felt different.
Mhm.
I felt different inside my body. I felt like I wasn't twisted, like I wasn't holding on to everything, like something had deeply shifted internally. And sometimes people say, oh, this sounds magical, it sounds so fast. And it's like, well, firstly, you have to be aware that I was very young. Like I wasn't, I was internally flexible in that sense. So when we're really young, we can let go of things in an easier way than
Mhm.
as we get older and more and more and more issues show up. And so for the next several weeks, I just kept working on this exploration. I didn't know what I was doing, but I just kept connecting and exploring. And by the end of those few weeks, my skin was completely clear, especially on my knees. It was all over my knees, all over my elbows. It was getting quite uncomfortable and pretty bad. And just never come back. And then my back was better, my anxiety went down. I'm not gonna lie, digestive issues took a lot longer, and I still have to be very aware of what it is that I'm putting in my mouth, and also just whatever's happening in my life that I'm digesting it, assimilating it, transforming it, because when it's connected to ancestry, and so it's like there's my own loss, and then there's the loss that my grandmother went through, which was of all her brothers and sisters and her mother when she was 13. And so when you're dealing not just with your own issues, it's almost like that part of the body is there as a barometer for you to say, hey, be aware, be aware that something, it's a compass. Something is a little off, look within.
Mm.
So that's been, just something that I have to be aware of, which I think is also a very positive thing because, it taught me how to eat in a really healthy way most of the time, I should say.
That's awesome. Yeah. So then from there, so was this your first book? I feel like it was your first book. How did that all transpire as well? Because obviously you've just had this awesome transformation. Then you've learnt that, oh, hang on a minute, it's not just the back, it's the knee, and it's all the elements that you've put in there. Like, how did that all just formulate into that book?
Well, it started with I realized that just like I could tune into my own body, I could do it with other people.
Yep.
And so I started doing a lot of different courses. And again, it was the fact that I could interview these people like you're doing, and but it wasn't for a podcast, it was for magazines because I want to write. And
Yep.
I thought, how do I win-win? How do I learn and at the same time um, help other people? And so I started doing the interviews and courses, and it was a challenge, I'm going to say, because a lot of the people who were teaching did not have the abilities that awakened within myself. And so they would teach things that, as I was watching them do on other people and students, work with, to me didn't feel right. And so I then really had to find my own way and my own systems. And so, but obviously I still needed to learn what people were teaching and where to start with others. And so um, as I was learning and learning, I felt that I could start, I started helping my family. And from my family, I could see there was these huge results that were happening. And from there, just friends, people, but friends of my partner, people that I didn't know well. I felt like the more I didn't know them, the more accurate I could be.
Ah.
And so, which was really interesting. And so after maybe a year, it became clear to me that I really could help people. And so as I was writing these articles and interviewing people and attending courses, I also started I offered the different people in the magazines to do healing on them for free. And then they could give me kind of an ad or, a shout out. And so it started with doing it for just people who could then help me, share. And again, they were having really amazing results. And I started getting advertising for free for these swaps that I was doing. And people started coming over several years, and I could see the connections that were occurring. It's like this oneness that we have with each other, that we think in one way, we're very unique and different, but in another way, we have this wisdom inside the body and the soul, let's
Mm-hmm.
say. And so I started to see a lot of links happen. And whilst I'm this person that I won't write a book that's already exists, and so I was actually writing a completely different book because I was like, oh, I want to write a book, but a totally different book. And I had met this publisher, and he invited me to pitch him a book. But also at the same time, I was having this challenge where I felt like the books that were available around, what's going on inside of your body, mentally, emotionally, energetically, what we were doing physically, action wise, they were just not deep enough. I'm one of those people, I need depth, I need layers. And I also felt like the processes they actually had were, were not enough, definitely not enough for my clients that I was seeing. And so I would write down processes for each client to do at home. And they would come back, and I would say, well, have you done the process? And it would be silence. And I would say, well, you can't lie to me because I can tell if you have or you haven't because I
Mm-hmm.
can see it.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I lost it. And so many times people said that, I thought, oh my God, if I could just write a book where there's all these processes, they can't tell me that they've lost a process. And so I went to see this publisher, and actually, he was a publisher of card decks. And I thought I'm going to be super prepared, and I'm going to go with, it was like 10 or 11 ideas. And so when I went and had this meeting with him, and I was like, I can do this card deck and this one and that. I didn't actually even know he did books at the time. And he said to me, look, if you actually connect this and this one together, it would be an amazing book and it would be a bestseller and I'd publish it. Those were his words. And I went, I think I already have quite a bit of this. I'm going to go home and, and put it all together because I was already teaching at the time, um, and see what happens, see what you think. And that's where it kind of started. And he gave me a contract, and started from there, for me writing it and him publishing.
Yeah, it's a really awesome book, and I encourage anyone to get it. And whenever I work with my clients and things too, I'm always referring to that book when I ask them the question of where their pain is. I get out your book and I read out the passage, and they're like, "Oh, it sums up their life prior to." Yeah, it's just awesome how our body is so powerful that it can talk to us through those ailments. And you would know too that we're so conditioned and so, I guess, programmed in a way that we don't actually listen to our bodies, that we're supposed to do what you did, go and see all these people and not get what we truly need from those people because we can give it to ourselves.
Well, I say this to people who are, even the ones who want to see me, which I don't really do one-on-one sessions anymore, but occasionally I might help somebody. And, what I say to them is, I can give you a roadmap, essentially, and I can connect the pieces, but I don't know you how you know you.
Yeah.
So you know you in a way where, if you were willing to do the work on yourself, and I'm like, I'd rather show you how to do the work on yourself and how to discover this than do it for you,
Mm,
unless you're kind of in a dire situation, where you're either very, very sick or you just have no idea where to start, and we need an answer really quickly. So in those scenarios, I'm more open to helping. But otherwise, I want to guide people back to themselves, back to self-discovery, because no matter how many times you see a practitioner, and potentially you should, I'm not saying that people shouldn't ever see somebody, but you need to see somebody with an attitude of, what else can I do? How can I, be part of my own healing journey, as well as get your help and support? If you go to see somebody from that perspective, as opposed to do it for me, fix me, I don't, then you're going to have a much, much better result in your healing journey.
mm. Yeah, it's the intention behind it, and it's that perspective flip, as you said. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So with all of what you do now, and like actually, what do you do now? You touched on that you don't see one-on-one much anymore. So what do you do if someone was listening that wanted to work with you? How could they work with you now if you don't do one-on-ones much anymore?
In so many ways, they can. I I go through different, I guess, layers of teaching people. So I have both free masterclasses and courses that I have recorded. So let's say somebody just discovered my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, and they go, I want to work with this book in the most effective way possible, because in anything, you can work with something in a very effective way, or you can get lost and confused and not necessarily do it in the most effective way. And so I have a masterclass for the secret language of your body. And then if you, with a process, that you can start, in terms of connecting to your body. And then if you go, you know what, I do want guidance in conjunction with the book, then I encourage people to purchase the course, which is quite inexpensive, and to start the journey and to go through all the parts that the course has, which you can work with at your own pace. Or there are also, and I have several different ones for people at different stages of their, I guess, internal development. Or I have my kind of signature course, which goes for 10 days, and it is live online, I'm going to say. So it's live on Zoom, um, where I really give you a foundation of what healing looks like. And we go through everything in that particular course, from how do we work with a thinking self, and what does that actually even mean? And so, and does it connect to certain subtle bodies inside of us? Because all of us from childhood pretty much have been told that we just have this one physical body. But to do healing, to allow yourself to go beyond just the physical, to understand where it comes from, right? You need to have access to these subtle bodies, to the storyline, because the physical body doesn't give us the storyline. But something like the etheric body, which is connected to our ancestry and connected to our life force and also our digestive system, gives us a storyline about what actually happened to us, and it holds memory. So most people, if you ask them, including scientists, where is memory? They'll go, I don't know, in the brain. But that's not the case. Or they'll go, the cellular memory. And again, that's half truth. So the cells, in a sense, they're physical. So it's not like on their own, they cannot hold memory. But the etheric body actually holds the physical body together, and it holds the memory. And we also know this because when somebody passes over, if you have ever seen that, their physical body, the shape of it, as the moment kind of the soul and the etheric body leave, they become a bag. Like they cannot, like nothing is being held. It's quite, fascinating to
Mm.
watch. And the body also starts to smell. And that's because the etheric body has left, and it's not balancing and adjusting, the digestive system. So it's so interesting and fascinating. And I'm one of those people, I feel like it's very important to have details in healing. It's important to understand all the parts and all the steps. And so we look at the thinking and we look at the feeling part. And from the age of 22, I've been teaching people about emotional healing, right? And I've gone through many, many layers of it and many, many stages of it. And I've come to the conclusion at this point, um, that the best way to work with emotions is actually through understanding archetypes. And so I go into depth of archetypal work because what happens is that most of us go, well, I don't know what I feel, especially I see that in younger generation because
Hmm.
we're not taught to acknowledge feelings, right? So just we're taught to push away and numb everything.
Yep.
So, right? So when you ask somebody, how do you feel? They just go, I don't know. Like, I don't know. And feelings, what I found were, first of all, they're very hazy. You don't know where the start, middle, or the end is. So you actually don't know how to work with them in terms of, well, have I worked through this feeling that I have or not? And that was the question that everybody kept asking me over and over and over again. And I went, okay, I need a structure for working with feelings for people, because I also saw that a lot of the techniques were either bringing up too many feelings where people were just overwhelmed and potentially causing more issues like more anxiety, or actually ripping that subtle body of emotions, or it was all about like, let's get rid of it because it's so uncomfortable.
Mm.
And then people were generalizing emotions because we only have so many words for emotions. So let's say we talked about, an emotion of anger. And I said to you, hey, Nathan, where is your anger in your body? And you might go, well, I feel some in my throat and also feel some in my stomach. And I also feel like I have anger in my liver, and I kind of feel it, in my back. Yeah, and I would say to you, hey, well, the anger in your throat is not the same anger that you feel in your liver, and is not the same anger that you feel in your stomach, and is not the same that you feel in your back. And you would go, oh my God, what do you mean? And it's that, okay, well, let's break the body down a little bit. The throat is about me communicating with you, right? And so if I haven't been taught how to communicate in a way that is effective, which is, I need to think a little bit about who I'm speaking to, but I also need to connect to my heart and feel, is this the right tone of voice or the right way to talk to somebody right now? Because everyone's going through their own challenges. And if I speak to people, like, everyone says, speak your truth. Well, if I tell my truth to the wrong person, the wrong time, and blurt it out, they'll just shut me down,
Yep.
right? It'll be like a slap. And I'm going to shut down my throat, but I'm going to be angry about the fact that they didn't allow me to express myself. And so I will hold that anger in my throat. But in my stomach, it could be anger around, partly what my family hasn't worked through in themselves. So they could have anger with each other and traumas. It could be with, when I was a teenager and I was trying to express myself and be who I am, I was shut down. I was told that I needed to be different to fit in, because this is actually about your teenage self a lot. And then if I look at the liver, then I would go, well, what are your relationships with males, or also, or your capacity? What do you feel your capacity is to do exactly what you want and achieve what you want? And so you might feel really frustrated that no matter how much you try and do things, and things are not happening. Or it could be connected to your dad, that he had all these expectations of you and he never acknowledged you. This is especially with males. So that could be that anger, but it's all numbed and suppressed, right? Which also leads to addiction. And then you have anger in your back for not being supported. And it's like, well, how the hell do I deal with all of these different parts of my anger, right? So when I scream and shout and bang on something or punch, a punching bag, which anger am I actually releasing, if any, is the question,
Mm.
or if I'm on the floor breathing. So I just felt like the more general, the more confusing, because people could scream and shout and do all this, and then tomorrow they still feel angry,
Yep.
And so I went, okay, we need a structure of understanding how how much we're progressing. And so I connected back to Jung's teachings. So, I was trying to look at what's the foundation of the teachings that we already have, and how do I take this further? And I went just the same way that I wrote my book about connecting to all the different parts of the body, which is that oneness. The the archetypes that we have within us are also giving us a story. And my curiosity was, I wonder if they have thinking, feeling, experiences, as well as, archetypal symbology, memories, which is giving me an understanding of where I'm at and also ages. And so as I started exploring it, people went, oh my God, I now know exactly what my anger is really about. And I can see this, this part of me, this archetype, and I can work with this part, communicate with it, and actually help it to grow. Right. And so a huge part of healing that a lot of people skip essentially is the fact that all of us at different points in our lives have been shut down to some degree. And these feelings and this, sadness, anger, grief, you know, fear are so connected to the fact that there's some part of me that didn't grow fully. And
Mm.
because it didn't grow, it's actually operating in what people call the subconscious. And they're, and we call it maybe the shadow. But I just wanted to go, let's take it out of this shadow light. Let's just understand that this is a part of you that potentially got stuck in a perspective. And let's help it to shift perspective. And so this is what I go and have a big, big dive into in my course called Awaken the Healer Within. And then we look at, things, really fascinating things like our etheric hands, for example. So we know we have chakras in different, parts of our body, but we don't necessarily know because it's not so obvious that we have chakras in our hands and in our feet. And when we work with them, we can really awaken our intuition. So it's almost like the eyes of the soul are in your hands. And we can explore something called awaken these etheric hands and work with this etheric body, which, like I said, is a copy of the physical body. And so we can start to make adjustments on the etheric level, which then imprints into the physical. But we also need to work on the emotional level.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to work, one of the things that people don't understand that has had a really bad rap is our ego. And we're always like, oh, you have a big ego. Oh, you have this. And what we don't realize is there's two parts of the ego. There's the lower self that, we need to not erase or get rid of, but we need to redeem it. We need to transform it. We need to work with it. And, where this is where you would say, oh, you're so egotistical, or you're so this. And there is the higher part of the ego, which is actually connected to your uniqueness, your sense of self, and where we can awaken a higher wise self. And both sides need to be worked with. And even with archetypes, we need the wise self to kind of re-nurture the lower self, the stuck self. And so we explore all this, and yeah, it's very, very profound and exciting. And we also look at spirituality and what it means. And yeah, how do we work on different parts of ourselves? And there's obviously a lot more. So
Mm.
people can either work with me in that live capacity where, we connect every day for this period of a 10-day kind of period. We do have a day off to assimilate with lots of homework. Um, or they can do the self-paced courses that I have. So that's the way of connecting.
Awesome in there because there's a lot that we can now talk about for the next little bit. So you've mentioned archetypes a few times. So if someone's listening, though I'm sure there'll be a question, I'll ask it for that person out there. What are the archetypes that you're talking about?
Yeah, so all of us have experienced childhood, right?
Mm.
So we start with the archetype of the inner child.
Mm.
And what's really interesting with the archetypes is that it's not just your childhood. It's every time you feel a little bit lost now, or you feel a little bit like, oh, I feel confused. I don't feel like I know what to do. I don't feel like an adult in some area. It's like if I start learning technology, and my partner is amazing at technology and I'm just like horrible at it. I feel like a child, right? It's like he's explaining to me and I'm going, oh my God, this connects into that inner child archetype. It's not just your childhood, it is your childhood meeting you now, is
Oh.
the archetype, right?
Mm.
And then we have an archetype of the victim. So
Oh,
we've
yeah.
all felt like, oh, this is so unfair. Oh my God, why is this happening to me? What have I done wrong? Why are you doing this to me? I'm trying so hard. And so, again, this archetype, when we start to recognize the voice, right? It's very, very important to learn the voice of these archetypes because we say, I'm anxious, for example, and I would go, well, which part of you? Because not all of you is anxious. There's a part
Oh.
of you, right? So if we really want to have the power to work with this anxiety, we need to identify, is it the victim in me? Is this the inner child? Then we have the saboteur.
Oh, yeah.
We've all experienced self-sabotage, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it could be as simple as I'm late. I'm always late, and because you're late, people get frustrated or things start happening. So, where or you procrastinate. So there's a procrastinator archetype within us where we make excuses, which is very connected to the saboteur in a way. So we're
Mm-hmm.
constantly making excuses, we're procrastinating, we're sabotaging. And once we start to actually understand why, and also we start, it's almost like we start to create a structure around them where we go, okay, if I was to connect to the victim in me now, what would that part look like? Because we also have the feminine side and the masculine within us. So we have on the left side is always the feminine because it's connected to the heart, and the right side is always the masculine because it's connected to the liver. And each one is actually sharing lots of stories with us. So I might go, well, I feel like a child, but is it connected to the feminine part of me or the masculine? I feel like a victim right now of my circumstances. Is this connected to me feeling like a victim because nobody likes me? Or am I feeling like a victim because I'm trying so hard to make things happen in the outside world and I just can't, which is more of the masculine, whereas internal kind of feelings about do they love me or like me? Do I like myself? Do I nurture myself? Do I give myself time? Is much more feminine. So as we start connecting these pieces, we can call on that archetype that is having that particular feeling that I'm experiencing connected to several stories. And so I'm going to say one other thing that's controversial. People are always saying we need to get to the root cause. It's just
Oh,
like
they
root
are.
cause, root cause.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? I'm sorry, I'm confused because there's no such thing in my reality. And I can see into the body. And I can also, what I can do with my etheric hands is actually identify the exact times when trauma has occurred on a particular theme or an issue, including a disease. So I can go back in time using my etheric hands. And like it is so, so accurate. It's crazy. And what I experience is that there are seeds that have been planted at different timelines that
Yes.
have grown.
Mm.
So if I go to the root cause, um, I still have to work on all the layers.
Yeah.
And the issue of just going to the root cause or that idea, it's like the card deck, right? When we put all the cards and we go, okay, if I, take the cards out from the bottom, everything falls apart. That means that's how healing works. And it's just not how healing works at all. Because firstly, to even get to the deepest layer, you have to go through, let's call them the more shallow layers, because you have to grow. You cannot
Mm.
just go straight to the deepest layer because you would fall apart. So you actually have to grow and you have to strengthen, let's call your ego. You have to strengthen your sense of self, your wise self, so that you can hold what may show up, right? So you have to work through these layers with wisdom at the time when you go, I can look at this now. I have enough wisdom, enough life experience where now I can understand this. If you were to look at something that's very difficult and you couldn't and you didn't have the guidance and you didn't have the support, what would actually happen is you would fall apart. And I'm writing a book at the moment about different stages of healing. And when you would skip several stages of healing, and you would actually, instead of having an amazing, like beautiful release and relief, like I did with my own experience, what would happen is you would have a kind of shocking release to your system where your nervous system essentially is not flexible enough to move through the trauma that you have not, you're not wise enough and strong enough to face. And so then you end up with potential hospital visits because your body is going into a trauma response as opposed to a release response because it's too fast, too much, and you're skipping too many steps.
So you're essentially, I totally agree with this. So essentially, because I find that it's a continual layer. You're not going to get necessarily to the root because as you grow and evolve, as you said, you're going to continue to strip back more layers and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I've found this too in some of the work I do, is that you're essentially bypassing some growth to get to that root that you're not ready for. That's essentially what you're saying. You're basically bypassing. Is that right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
then I had this experience, right? And I'll give an example.
Yeah.
So, um, years and years ago, I was actually creating this video because I wanted to show people how I tuned in and what I did. And so I was at that time I was in Paris and I was doing it with this woman who had done some of my workshops in Paris, and she didn't really speak English. So I had my translator there, which was her best friend. And so I tuned into her and I said to her, you know what? And I started with her nervous system. I said to her, what I'm seeing is that your nervous system is kind of operating, it's like in this fight or flight response at the moment.
Yeah.
And it's actually connected to a relationship and it's connected to with a man and it feels quite violent. And she went, you're wrong.
Oh.
And I went, and I thought to myself, oh, that's really interesting because either it was 9 o'clock at night at the time, either I'm really tired or she's lying. And I'm pretty sure that since it's her body that's showing me, she's probably lying. And so I said, or being dishonest, let's just say, rather than lying. And so I said, okay, we're going to stop filming and we're going to talk about this. And so her friend came and started translating, and he said to her, I don't understand, why are you being dishonest? And she said, because I've dealt with it, so she cannot possibly be seeing this. I can't tell
Oh.
you how many people have said this to me,
Yeah.
right? Because because they skip the steps and they think they've done the root cause. They go, okay, it's done. But what they also don't understand is how cycles work. And we have, from the age of 21, we start to have 7 year cycles
Yeah, we do.
that, and they're astrological as well, that keep
Mm.
repeating. And each year of that cycle, you're actually revisiting something earlier on that you didn't deal with because you didn't know how to deal with things when you were a child or a teenager. And now you're having to face and, deal with it. But often we don't know. We just go, oh my God, I wake up and I have anxiety. I don't know why. You don't realize that you are going through a cycle connected to yourself when you were 3 years old, when you were potentially merging with your mom and she was having anxiety and you wanted to save her or help her, but as a 3 year old, you couldn't. And so you took it onto yourself and then created all this layered stuff, but now you're feeling it, and you're 25, you're 35 or whatever, and you're going, I don't understand why I'm feeling anxiety this year. Well, because you're actually reliving something that happened before, and we need education. We need, if we had education, Nathan, we would have probably half, if not like 80% less of what we call mental illness.
I agree.
Because people would actually go, oh, I can do something about it instead of all I can do is take medication and
Hmm.
numb myself, because no medication is actually dealing with it. It's just survival mechanism. And so if we, the more education we have, where we can go, hold on a sec, I can work with this. I can, let's say with the archetypes, I can connect to myself as a younger person. I can understand that, like for me, for instance, I explain this to my daughter a lot, that every generation also has an aspect of the archetype that's different. So when I was 15 and growing up, in terms of the feminine archetype, I went, what's going on with the feminine? Oh my God, women can work now, women can, vote. But in relationships, I still felt like women didn't have much of a voice. So my daughter said to me at one point, she's like, Mom, why do I always feel like you kind of stand up to men and argue at times with them. And as to, because that's what I had to work with, from when I was very young. When I was 15, I went, I want to be independent, but I'm also going to stand up for myself, because I didn't see women standing up for themselves at that time much. And, I was like, in your generation, it is completely different. It's like, and I felt like there was still a huge inequality between men and women, and what was okay for men and not okay for women. And so I was working with that archetype, but like there was so much more equality in a different way. So now you're working with a different aspect of that archetype because you're a different generation. So archetypes are connected to the universal kind of awareness and are definitely also unique to when you were born and what was going on at that time. Some of them are. Anyway, so it's very interesting.
It is. And there's like so much to talk about within that now as well, which is all running out of time. I could sit here and talk to you for like 2 or 3 hours. You know what I mean? Yeah, like this, like, everything that you're saying it's so true because I find that even when you like, I feel like it's not an ego comment, but it's a comment of I've done this now. Like I've gone through that, whatever that was. I've healed that. You probably hear that a lot too. I've healed that. Yet
Yeah,
it will come back up, and people are often wondering like, well, I've dealt with that, so why is it here? But I always say it's just encouraging you to go deeper,
yeah,
deeper again, and it's an onion that's never really gonna disappear, but you'll be able to. I find you'll be able to not necessarily manage isn't the word, but like manage it and deal with it as it arises as you get more tools and resources and you grow into you know bigger parts of yourself and you've got more tools and resources to go. Well, this has happened before. This is this is obviously encouraged me to go deeper. So we ask those questions and we do the inner inquiry, as I'm sure you're aware of, and then you can understand that this has come up again for a reason. Though there's always a reason for it too, right?
Yeah, and the
Yeah,
reason is what I just said, that
correct.
you are a part of, you're in that cycle and you are actually meant to face it right now. So rather than getting disappointed, the opportunity is to go, oh, this is so interesting.
Mm.
How do I discover and explore something in this now? And of course, if you've skipped a lot of steps along the way, it shows up in a way that's, you know, more frustrating and disappointing, as opposed to if you've gone, you know, and steps, we're talking about layers here, as opposed to going, where's the root cause? Let me
Yes.
find the root cause because I don't really want to deal with any of the layers. So so essentially, if you do it slowly, which is what people don't like hearing, but I'm like, well, if you do it quickly, then you put a band-aid on and you know, essentially it's going to be band-aid the same way that, you know, medication could help you for a little while, but it is a band-aid. It's not healing. It's something completely different. And so it's showing up again because your soul, let's call it that, your inner self is
Mm.
saying, hey, are you ready now? Can you look at this now? And, you know, and now there are more layers to
Yep.
look at. And so the longer you ignore or push away, the harder it is because now you're, you know, and this is why it's not like one, you know, one root cause, because you put an intention out, right?
Yes. I was about to say
You
that.
have a perspective, let's call it, and that perspective becomes grows and it becomes more and more real for you because that's how you actually see the world. And to change, to heal, one of the parts of that, one of the biggest, is you've got to change perspectives. But you've had this perspective in so many different levels, in so many different ways. And that's why I keep saying also, when you work with archetypes, you can start to go, whose voice is this? What are the words that I'm hearing?
Mm.
Are they the words of my wise self that is grown? Or are they words of a part of me that got stuck? Which is the part that got stuck? Let me discover it. Let me connect with it. And some people, what I love about it is that some people are very visual like me. I'm extremely visual.
Same.
So, which is great, right? So you can see, I can see that archetype appearing in front of me, and you know, and I can go, oh wow, it's looking either very unhealthy because it's leaning forward, or it's looking really old, or it's looking very young, and so it already gives me a lot of information. But even if you couldn't kind of see it, you have a sense of it, a feeling of it, or a
Yes.
knowing about it. You know, there's a knowing about, oh, this is the voice, this is how I'm, you know, like whichever way it is, this is the storyline, this is the memories, this is what it's about. And then what you start to see, I mentioned the etheric hands early on. So when you start to, rather than going this root cause idea, you start to go, with this particular theme, what are the time periods in my life where with this, you know, where there was a seed and it grew. And if I
Mm.
can give a quick example, so I don't usually, like I said, do healing sessions with people, but occasionally I do when I feel like somebody's really stuck. And I don't usually like to do it, especially with my friends, but again, occasionally it happens. And so I was spending some time a few months ago with a friend of mine, and She has she has a tumor, but it's benign. But it's still connected. It's in her back, and it's impacting her nervous system, and she gets pain from it. And so I was like, I'm really curious. One, why? Because it's been there for a long time. Why it's benign, and two, exactly where it came from. And so again, using my etheric hands, I went, I'm going to connect to your etheric body because it's your memory body, because that's where I want to get this information. I'm not interested in making it up or you telling me. I want to know exactly how it happened, where it happened. And so we actually got, I think it was like 5 or 6 different timelines. And what was fascinating was we did go back to when she was, I think, 6 years old. And this was where this seed kind of came of, and it was all to do with I can't express and be honest and be who I really am, which even from my book, it was very obvious, this is connected to communication, because it's in the back, but like lack of communication and feeling ashamed to say what you feel. But we needed to really connect to why it happened at each age, and each time period. And so my friend said to me, okay, so did the tumor start at 6, even though her first experience of, oh my God, I cannot tell the truth about what I'm feeling was at 6. And I said to her, well, interestingly, absolutely not. It did not start, the physical part of it did not start at 6. The physical part of it actually started at 28. And what was interesting was that at 28, firstly, you know, so it was around the throat, and it's also when the throat chakra develops. But so I found that fascinating.
Mm.
But also at 28, she made a decision to be in a relationship with somebody that she knew her family disapproved of. And so it actually became a real physical thing. Before that, she was like, oh, how do I work with my family? How do I kind of not be honest? How do I do this? And even though she was still hiding it, she was actually in this relationship with someone. It became like, I am still not telling the truth, but I'm in one, right? I'm physically in this relationship. Um, and what was really interesting, why it stayed benign, was that both of her parents had died at these different time periods before the tumor became
Oh,
cancerous. And she had these big releases, where she went, okay, now I can tell the truth. So she still ended up having this tumor, which hasn't released because she hasn't worked through all those time periods, and what it was about. But it didn't become cancerous because she could let go and release before it did, right? It was on
mm.
the way. So we just found it so fascinating. And every age and everything we talked about, she was like, oh my God,
Yeah.
hey, I've never thought about this. I can see. And we started with me seeing her archetype, because I said to her, we kind of started with age 46. And she said, well, I don't know what happened. Like, this happened, this. And I was like, no, 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 no. And I said, I'm seeing a feminine archetype, and it's like she's throwing up. Like she's literally like, you know, all this stuff is coming out. And I said, what happened in the year before? And she said, oh, well, my dad died. And I could then just be free to be in the relationship that I want without having to pretend anymore. And I was like,
Mm.
right, this is why, the tumor stopped growing at that time, because you didn't have to keep this pretense going, which is all about that area, right? But pushing it back, pushing it back. So it is just fascinating how the body works
It
and the
is.
wisdom it has.
It is. And, you know, there's a good book out there, The Body Keeps the Score. The body definitely does keep the score. the more I read your book and read other books and do my own sort of journey with it, yeah, the body definitely does keep the score. And the older you get, the more it does, I guess. But, there's so many tools and resources out there, and your book's just one of many, but your book is up there. It's definitely helped me a lot. So, Ina, thank you so much for sharing all you shared today. If there was one piece of advice out there for someone that's listening that's a bit younger, maybe it might be your younger self. Who knows where you'll channel this from, but what would be a piece of advice for someone out there that's listened to you today and gone, oh, some of these ailments I have, and some of these things, there's a deeper reason to it, and they're starting to connect the dots. What would your advice be for that person to continue on their journey?
Well, firstly, don't lose hope and don't necessarily just believe everything the experts tell you, especially if they tell you that there's no hope, because I can tell you there is. I have seen so many people heal what, the medical profession said is not possible to heal. And I've also seen a lot of people die from doing what they tell you to do,
Hmm.
you know, or get worse. So what I'm not saying not to go to the doctors. What I'm saying is look at different possibilities. And, my question is always, if I'm listening to somebody, do they know where something may come from, not necessarily as a root cause, but as layered or kind of foundational, like where did it potentially originate? And if they say they have no idea, I stop listening that moment. So you have to understand that you're to heal, that your body has this wisdom. And it's not just to heal, it's to grow. It
Mm.
is to expand out of your limitations. It is to move through your potentially painful or difficult emotions. And there's definitely a pathway to it. And I want you to feel like there is hope. Because again, I started when I was really, really young, and so I feel like the younger you start, the more exciting the journey is, because then you don't have to kind of be a victim of what happens to you, and instead you embrace that empowered path where you go, anything and everything that's happening to me, there's an opportunity to explore and discover something deeper and wiser. And there's an opportunity for me to grow internally. It is an opportunity for me to embrace more of my creative colors, more of my flavors, essentially to be more of who I am. And this pain or this challenge is actually guiding me towards it. And I just don't know it yet. So whether you start with a book, whether it's my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, or another book, or you start with finding, a practitioner, somebody who can lead you, or, again, go to my website, innasegal.com, and explore some of the free resources and then see, where you can go. Whichever way you start, the most important step is to start and to understand that it's not magic. It is healing is not like curing. It's not about instant. It's about wisdom
Mm.
and actually learning and growing, as well as releasing pain and trauma and, diseases.
Well said. Thank you so much. This was awesome. 2 years in the making, and you
Mm.
definitely delivered a lot to take away and a lot to learn from. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your book and everything that you've done for humanity and for the world. And I really appreciate your book and appreciate you and the work you've done. So you've been very profound on my journey. Not that you probably know that, but I did read your book and it's helped me a lot. So I thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you so
And where
much.
can people? Oh, you've already done it with your website. So yeah, innersegal.com. Jump on
Yep.
there and have a look, and there'll be links to all of Inna stuff in the show notes and a link to the book as well. So Inna, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you giving your time to me and my audience and my platform as well. So thank you so much for everything today.
Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you guys again soon. This is the Breaking Free podcast. We're over and out. Talk to you soon. Cheers.